I welcome you all students. Today we are going to see the solution for the first physics model test part 1. Here you would have taken up a test which includes 55 questions where there are multiple choice questions and case study. So in this video we will be seeing the solution, tricks and what are the different shortcuts which we can utilize to solve the question in a very short interval of time. So to begin with, the first question goes like this. This particular session involves many tricks that many people used to follow in the competitive exams like NEET or JEE. So whatever I am going to teach you is very important. Okay, these techniques may not be found in many books, so I want you to listen very carefully to this. So to begin with, if an object of mass 1 kilogram contains 4 into 10 power 20 atoms, if one electron is removed from every atom of the solid, the charge gained by the solid in 1 gram is. So first the object is of mass 1 kilogram. So 1 kilogram sized mass has 4 into 10 power 20 atoms in them. But we are interested only in finding the number of charge that is present only in 1 gram. So first what I have to logically do is I have to divide it accordingly to know how many atoms are present in 1 gram of solid. That is the first thing. Then what are they saying is they are going to remove 1 electron from every atom of a solid. Okay, so if 1 electron is removed, what happens? It gets a positive charge because initially it will have equal number of positive as well as the negative charge. So the initial charge would be 0. If you remove an electron, the dominating positive charge will be high, so that the entire thing will be positively charged. That is the thing I would like to say in here. So whatever we are searching for is a positive charge in here. The first thing that I have to find is the number of atoms that are present in 1 gram. Once we have found that, we know how many electrons are being removed and we also know how much charge that particular solid is going to gain. Yeah, first to begin with, 4 into 10 power 20 divided by 1000. Okay, I am just going to do this to find how many atoms are going to present in 1 gram of a solid. Listen, so 4 into 10 power 20 into 10 power minus 3, which is 4 into 10 power 17 atoms. 4 into 10 power 17 atom is what is going to present in 1 gram of a solid. Now the total charge is nothing but n times the charge. What does that n stands for? N stands for the number of charge and E is the amount of the charge, that is the magnitude of the charge that we are going to talk about. Okay, here n is what that we are finding in here. What did I find in here? I first found the number of atoms that are present for 1 gram, and for every atom 1 electron is removed. So I assume that this much amount of electron is being removed. Okay, so now which is equal to 4 into 10 power 17. 4 into 10 power 17 into what is the magnitude of the charge? It is 1.6. It's 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 coulomb it is. So now the calculation is very simple. If you manage to reach to this step, you are 90% done with your problem, because 16 into 4 will definitely give you 64 and we have only one option which looks similar to that, right? So listen, 4 into 1.6 is nothing but 6.4 into 10 power minus 2 it is. Okay, 19 minus 7 is minus 2. Okay, so this is the amount of charge that a 1 gram of solid is going to gain. So option B is your answer. See, we logically did this. First we found the number of atoms present in 1 gram. Since 1 electron is removed from each atom, I found the total number of electrons being removed and I multiplied it with the magnitude. Simple as it is. So this is how we solved this. Now we move to the second question. It's again a very interesting question if you observe. 2 point charges plus q and minus q are located at x equal to 0 and x equal to L respectively. The point on the x-axis at which the net electric field is 0 due to these charges is. So let's assume that the charges are being placed on the x-axis. So first a charge of 8q is placed exactly at x equal to 0, 8q. Another charge of negative 2q is placed at a distance of L. Okay. Then the point on the x-axis at which the net electric field is 0. So just first we will make sure that which is a possible answer. Okay. All the answers are positive in the first place. So I am very much sure that I am not going to get anything on the left. Right? This is the positive x-axis. So my answer is not going to lie on the negative x-axis. One conclusion I come in based on my options. Okay. Then the next question is, which position will be possibly your answer? Will it be in between 8q and minus 2q? Do you think so? You see, let's assume that we are going to put a positive charge in here, a test charge. What happens? This positive test charge will get repelled due to this and it gets attracted due to this. Definitely the net force will not go to 0 at the center. Not only at the center, completely in between these two charges. I am sure about that. So now we are only left with one option, to place the test charge on the right side. Okay, to place the test charge on the right side, you see, I am going to place it here. Already this is x equal to 0, this is x equal to L, and I will just call this distance to be x. Now we are about to find the whole distance from x equal to 0. That is important. I will show you how. Follow the basic technique that you have learned to find the net force at any point. First thing I will do is I will mark this up. Then I will ask myself a question. This is a test charge. Definitely it's a positive one. So this will get repelled due to this. So the electric field will point this way because force and the electric field will be in the same direction. That is the reason why I am dealing this exactly like a force. Now this is a negative 2q. So the positive charge in here will get attracted to this. So this will be another electric field E2. Well and good. So all we have to do is we have to find the net electric field and I have to put it to 0 and I have to do my calculation. Ready? E net is equal to E1 and E2 goes in a negative sign. See, first let me express E1. E1 is nothing but K into 8Q divided by the whole length is L plus X. L plus X the whole squared. Next one is negative K into 2Q by, what is the distance between these two? It is just X. It becomes X squared. Remember one thing, I have put a negative sign in here not because that this is negative. Not because that this is negative. That is purely due to the direction of your E2. Since your E1 is pointing that side, it got a positive sign. Your E2 is pointing this side, that's why it got a negative sign. Not because of the magnitude, that was purely because of the direction. Remember, because most of the students go wrong in this. Okay, they understand this concept wrongly, and they don't understand that the negative sign is due to the vector. Okay, they say that it is due to the magnitude. Please make yourself correct. Now the net electric field is going to go 0 because that is what given to me in the question. I will take this to the other side and I will start doing the calculation. 2kq by x squared is equal to 8kq by L plus x the whole squared. Kq and kq will go down, and I will bring this to the denominator. It becomes 1 by 4, which is equal to x square by L plus x the whole squared. Okay, it's L plus x the whole squared. Yes. Now I am going to take root on both the sides. It becomes 1 by 2 is equal to x by L plus x. Just cross multiply this. L plus x is equal to 2x and x is equal to L. Immediately after seeing this, you will go and choose your fourth option. That is wrong. Because at the very beginning, what did I say? We are supposed to find the distance from x equal to 0. So it is x is equal to L. Okay, from x you are supposed to find this distance. So this is already L and this is another L, which is 2L, which is 2L, which is given like this. Okay, that is our third option. It's straightforward and very simple. See, I found the net electric field and I have reduced it to 0, and I took one part of the equation to the other side and I have accordingly reduced it. So the third question goes as: the electrostatic force on a small sphere of charge 0.2 microcoulomb due to another small sphere of charge of minus 0.4 microcoulomb in air is 0.4 newtons. The distance between the two spheres is what we are supposed to find. Since the radius of the spheres are not given, we can just consider it to be a point masses and we can proceed with that. So now listen, here is one sphere and here is the another sphere. One is 0.2 microcoulomb and the other one is minus 0.4 microcoulomb, and r is the distance between them. And what you are supposed to find is you are supposed to find the electrostatic force of attraction between them, where capital F is equal to K into Q1 Q2 by R squared it is. So R square or R is what we are supposed to find, where R squared is equal to, what is K? 9 into 10 power 9 into, what's Q1? It is 0.2, Q2 is 0.4 into 10 power minus 12 it is, divided by the force is 0.4 newtons. So 0.4 and 0.4 will go down in the first place. All we have to do is we have to just reduce the rest of the things and we have to conclude the answer. So now what are we left with is R squared is equal to 9 into 0.2 is 1.8 into 10 power 9 and in 10 power minus 12, which is 10 power minus 3. 10 power minus 3 it is. So now what you have to do is we have to just take the root on both the sides and we have to finish it off. So listen, before taking the root, what I can say is 10 divided by 10 it is, into 10 divided by 10 it is. So this 10 will join with this and it becomes 18 into 10 power minus 3 by 10 is 10 power minus 4. So R squared, R is equal to, on taking root on both the sides, root 18 will definitely be slightly greater than 4. So by seeing the option, I get to know that it will definitely be 4.2 into 10 power minus 2 centimeters it is. So this will be our answer. See, again it's a straightforward question. After drawing a diagram, I get to know this is the formula that will represent the entire situation. So, here all the quantities except r squared is given. So, we have to plug in all the quantities into this and we have to find r in there. So, this is how the problem goes. Next question. Okay, here we have three charges, 2q, minus q and minus q lies on the vertices of a triangle. What is the value of the E and V at the centroid of a triangle? E stands for the electric field and V stands for the potential. So, now what they just want us to find is, we have to take an equilateral triangle and we have to accordingly place the charges and we have to say them whether the electric field could be 0 or the potential could be 0 or which one is not equal to 0. So, accordingly we have to choose the options. So, now listen, I am going to take my 2q on the top, okay, and I am going to take my negative q's at the bottom. Now, the centroid means the point where these lines intersect, at this point. 2q, minus q and minus q, this is where it intersects. Okay, now, you have to figure out whether the electric field is equal to 0 or the potential is equal to 0 in here. Okay, now, let me do a very simple technique to find it out. Assume that we have a test charge in here, okay, it is a positive charge. Okay, now what happens is, this positively charged will repel this test charge down. Likewise, this test charge gets attracted to this negative charge. Likewise, this test charge will again get attracted to this negative charge. So, if you see, the total net force is actually pointing down. Okay, so definitely it has got a net force. So, definitely it will also have an electric field. So, electric field will not be equal to 0. Okay, electric field is not equal to 0. Okay, now with that note, what I can do is I can eliminate these two options. Directly I will eliminate that. Now you have to decide from A and C. For that, potential is again a scalar one. What I will do is, this distance I will call it x, likewise this distance will also be x and this distance will also be x. Okay, they are all equidistance. So, first this is assumed to be a unit positive charge, even though it has some value. I am not worried about that because we are dealing with the potential. So, V is equal to k into 2q by x is the potential offered to this particular charge, and for this minus k into q by x minus k into q by x for this. So, now if you add everything, V goes to 0. See, your electric field is not equal to 0, but your V is equal to 0. So, that is your answer. So, that is your answer, option C. See, very easy it is. You do not have to do any calculation for this. A logical approach is more than enough to solve this. You have to understand that the direction of the electric field and the electric force are going to be the same, and you will have to do the same type of calculation to probe both the values, and I did the same at the centroid and I have finished it out. So, this is how the things really go with this particular problem. So, next we move to an LCR circuit. In a series LCR circuit having L is equal to 30 millihenry, R is equal to 8 ohms and the resonating frequency, you see this is a very important word, the resonating frequency is 50 hertz, then what is the quality factor? Then what is the quality factor is what the question is. So, now the quality factor goes like this. What is the quality factor? Q is equal to Q is equal to 1 by R into root of L by C, right? So unfortunately we only know what is L and what is R. Okay, C is not given to us. So what I will do is, if your circuit is equivalent to the resonating frequency, then we already saw that XL equal to XC, where omega L is equal to 1 by omega C, so that C is equal to 1 by omega square L, omega square into L, where C is equal to 1 by omega can be rewritten as 2 pi mu. Okay, 4 pi squared, mu is given to us in the question, which is 50. So 50 squared of L. L is 30 into 10 power minus 3. Okay, where C is equal to 1 by, we have to reduce the whole thing. Okay, instead of doing everything from in here, I will take it to the next step, where the Q factor is already given. Q factor is like this, right? So Q is equal to 1 by R. What is R in here? It is 8. Is equal to root of L by C. So what is L? L is given as 30 into C. So all the other things will go up, into 4 pi squared into 50 squared into 30 into 10 power minus 3. Everything goes over there, divided by 1. So if you reduce everything inside the root, we directly move to the answer. The answer for this particular question is, the Q value we get is equivalent to 1.18. I am not going to do all these calculations inside the root, because it's straightforward, because most of the things are actually squared before putting it in. So try to pull everything out. You see 30 and 30 is also available. You can just also pull that out. Okay, so the calculation is also very easy inside the root. I am not going to do that. And the value for this is 1.18. So this is the Q factor for your LCR circuit. See, again we stuck to the basic. We took the equation that is necessary to solve the problem. I extracted the data from there and I have plugged everything into that and I got the answer. Okay. So now we move to the next one. An electric charge of 8.85 into 10 power minus 13 coulomb is placed at the center of a sphere of radius 1 meter. What is the electric flux through the sphere? So according to Gauss law, the electric flux that is coming out of the enclosed surface is Q enclosed by epsilon naught. Okay. So what is Q enclosed? Q enclosed represents the total charge that is being enclosed by the sphere. So here the sphere is going to enclose a charge of 8.85 into 10 power minus 13 coulomb divided by, what is the value of your epsilon naught? It is 8.85 into 10 power minus 12. So it's a direct cancellation. If I cancel them out, I am left with 10 power minus 1 Newton Coulomb inverse meter squared, which is equivalent to 0.1, which is your option B. See, you don't have to do much. You should understand that you have to apply the Gauss law first, because a charge is being enclosed by a complete sphere. So the flux that is going to come out of the sphere is equivalent to Q enclosed by epsilon naught. And I do the same thing over here and I finish this. Yes, now, so in this case, it is given as the electric field within the nucleus is generally observed to be a linear dependent of R. Okay, instead of just looking at the graph, we will just approach it in a general method. Here we have to deal the whole thing like a charged sphere, a solid charged sphere. Okay, because nucleus looks spherical and it is going to have totally positive charges even inside the sphere, right? So, what is the electric field due to that? If I apply Gauss law for this, the electric field which I will be getting is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into r cube of r. This is what I get. See? So what I understand from this is electric field is directly proportional to r. The electric field is directly proportional to r from this equation. Okay, actually CBSE and state board student might wonder what this is. This is the electric field inside a non-conducting uniformly charged sphere, a non-conducting sphere. If it was a conducting sphere, the charges would be present only at the surfaces. Okay, since the charges are inside that, so this is what it is. The electric field is directly proportional to r it is, right? So, the option C will be our answer. Option C will directly be our answer for this particular question. So, now we move to the next one. What charge would be required to electrify a sphere of radius 25 centimeter so as to get the surface charge density of 3 by pi coulomb per meter cube? So, what charge is required to electrify such a sphere? So, now listen, the surface charge density is given. You see, it is surface charge density, so it is sigma is equal to Q by A. So, now you have to find how much amount of charge is required to do that. So, Q is equal to, what is sigma? Sigma is 3 by pi into A. What is A? A is nothing but the area of the sphere. It is 4 into pi into r squared it is. Q is equal to 3 by pi into 4 into pi into, what is r? Is nothing but radius. It is 25 squared into 10 power minus 4. Pi and pi will go down, where Q is equal to 12 into 625 into 10 power minus 4. 12 into 625 into 10 power minus 4 is nothing but 0.75 coulombs it is. 0.75 coulomb it is. That is the answer for the 54th question. Okay, simple. See, surface charge density is given. I wrote the formula and I found Q. Simple as it is. Okay, now we move to the final question, which is your 55th question. It's a straightforward one. See, they are asking you to find the linear charge density, which is nothing but lambda, which is nothing but Q by L, C by M. So, your answer is option B. So, this is how the problems are done. So, if you go through the entire session, I would have followed a simple technique to solve each and everything. The technique is the basic one. Choose a formula according to the question, take the data from the question, plug it into the formula, do the calculation, because most of the students even go wrong in doing the multiplication and division. Please make sure you don't do that. Okay, do the analytical calculations well and you will end up with the answer. And every time you don't directly go in and start solving the problem. Just have a look at what is given to you in the options. See whether you are able to probe the options directly without even doing the calculation. If you are able to do that, you directly choose the answer. Okay, so these are the few important tricks and techniques that you have to follow whenever you are going to take up a multiple choice question examination. Welcome students. So in this session, we are going to do some problems on electric charges and field. So the first question is very simple and a straightforward one. So the question goes like, a dipole of dipole moment P bar is placed in an uniform electric field E bar, then the torque that is acting on it will be. So generally the torque is nothing but a rotating force that is acting on a body, and when an electric dipole, okay, you already know that dipole is nothing but two equal but opposite charges which are separated by a very small distance are placed in an uniform electric field. When a dipole is placed in a uniform electric field, it experiences a force, and that force will constitute a torque. So generally the expression for the torque is nothing but tau bar is equal to R cross F it is. So it is written as tau bar is equal to R bar cross F bar. So now in an uniform electric field, if we are going to place a dipole which is like this, I will call it to be positive Q and this is negative Q. This positive Q will experience a force in this direction and the negative charge will experience a force in this direction. So this equal but opposite forces acting on two ends of the dipole will constitute a torque, and the equation reduces to a cross producted one. So if you just have a look at the option, the first one is a dot product, the third one is a algebraic sum, and the third one is a simple difference. But we already know that the torque is always a vector quantity and will be written only in terms of a cross product. So just this equation gives us a clue of how the answer is going to look. So from this I can just reduce that my torque tau bar is equal to P bar cross E bar it is. Otherwise there is also a systematic way of deriving this down, but I am not going to go into the derivative part because this derivation is present in almost all the textbooks. So I am just going to show you how you simply arrive at the answer. This gives us the clue which directly shows that the option B is our answer. So this is how this problem goes around. So now we move to the next question, which is in fact very simple. A given figure gives the electric lines of force due to two charges Q1 and Q2. Just observe that both the charges are not equal in magnitude. What are the signs of the two charges? Okay, just by looking into the way the electric lines are going to behave, you have to decide on the magnitude of the charge. Okay, so if you just have a look at this, you can see almost both the electric lines are similar. Okay, what did I say at the very beginning? Two charges are not going to be of same magnitude. Okay, so if they try to draw such a diagram, they should be very precise about the number of lines that are going to come out. Since they are not differentiating it like that, what I am going to look into that is the direction of the magnetic lines. So just have a look at the direction of the magnetic lines. You can very well see that the magnetic lines are actually going into the charges. Okay, so see, the elementary level, we know that the positive charge will definitely have the electric lines that are pointing out. The negative charges will have the electric lines that are going inside the charges. We already know this very well. So with this idea, what I can conclude is both the charges are negative in nature. Both the charges are negative in nature. Clear? So this is how the things really work. I didn't actually see the behavior of the electric lines, rather I just saw the direction of the electric lines, which is actually converging into the charge, which proves that this particular charge is negative. Yes, now the next question goes like this. What is the flux through the cube? of side A if a point charge of Q is at one corner. Okay, so we are going to take a cube and a charge is placed at one corner of the cube. Okay, so according to Gauss law, if a charge is completely enclosed by any volume, the amount of flux that is going to come out of the surface of that volume is equal to Q enclosed by epsilon naught. Okay, you should be very precise. You should choose a volume that is suitable to enclose the entire charge, first point. The second point is, if it does so, then the amount of flux that is going to come out of the surface of those volumes are going to be Q enclosed by epsilon naught. In this case, in this particular case, we are going to place a charge down here. Okay, we are going to place a charge in this point. Okay, so in this situation, they are asking you to find the flux that is coming out of this cube. So what are we supposed to do? So in order to use the Gauss law, the first thing that you have to make sure is whether the charge is completely enclosed or not. Here I am very much sure that the charge is not enclosed, it is exposed to the atmosphere. Okay, it's exposed to the surrounding. So in order to apply the Gauss law, first I have to ensure that my particular charge is completely enclosed by any means. So how do you think I am going to enclose this? I am going to choose a imaginary object. Okay, it could be anything. So what I am going to choose for this particular case is another cube. So it is completely of your imagination. Just listen very carefully. Here is a cube. I am imagining I am placing another cube on the right side of this. I will place another cube behind this, another cube behind this. So totally there are four cubes on the surface. Okay, but still I am unable to enclose the entire charge. Even though I have managed to place 3 extra cubes, I am not enclosing the charge. So what I am supposed to do? I have to add some more cubes. So again I am going to add 4 more cubes on top of these cubes which are at the surface. So totally 4 cubes at the bottom and 4 cubes at the top. Please imagine, second one on the right, third one behind this, fourth one behind this imaginary cube. Like this, I will be keeping 4 more cubes on the top. Only then I will be able to enclose the entire charge of this. Once this particular charge is being completely enclosed by the cube, the flux coming out of the entire setup, the flux that is going to come out of the entire setup is nothing but Q by epsilon naught according to the Gauss law. But unfortunately, out of 8 cube, only 1 is real and all the other 7 cubes are the imaginary ones, right? We have placed those cubes to solve the entire phenomenon using a Gauss law. Okay, so now if Q by epsilon naught is the total flux that is going to come out of the 8 cubes, then what is the amount of flux that is going to come out of only 1 cube? Simple. Q by 8 epsilon naught it is. Q by 8 epsilon naught it is. So this is the amount of flux that is going to come out of only 1 cube when a charge is placed at one corner of a cube of side A. So this is how this problem goes. So here there is no much of a calculation, but you have to understand the concept and you have to accordingly apply it to the situation. That is the only problem in here. So now we move to the next question, which is a case study. Here we are going to study a case. They will be giving us a set of data, and through this I will be answering few questions. Now listen very carefully. So you have to read line by line and you have to understand the situation in order to answer any questions that are being asked. Okay, so now quantization of electric charge. Smallest charge that can exist in the nature is the charge of an electron. During friction, it is only a transfer of electron which makes a body charged. Yeah, of course. Hence, the net charge of any body is an integral multiple of charge of the electron. You see, the charge of the electron is given to you. Note it down. Then they have given you couple of diagrams. That is, here you have positive 2e and you have negative 3e. So, what is the total charge of this body? You have to just algebraically add them. So, minus 3 plus 2 will give you minus 1. So, the total charge in here is minus e. Likewise, in here we have positive 10e and positive 5e inside a closed object. So, what is the total charge of this particular object means? You will again algebraically add the charges. So, positive 10e plus positive 5e will give you 15e. Okay. So, this is how the charges are being added. Okay. So, this is how you quantize the charges. Total charge is nothing but plus or minus n times e, where n is the integral multiple. Okay. Now, hence no body can have a charge represented in terms of a decimal or a fraction value. Recently, it has been discovered that the elementary particles such as proton or neutron are comprised of more elementary units called quarks. Yeah, of course, because no one has ever probed an electron before, but we are able to probe the proton or neutron, and we understood that even those elementary particles have a smallest one inside them called as quarks. So, there are two types of quarks, one is up quark and the other one is the down quark. So, based on the arrangement of the up and down quarks inside the elementary particle, the proton and neutron charges are being decided. So, I do not want to go deep into that. So, now what we are going to do is, we are going to answer one question after the other. The first question goes as, which of the following property is not satisfied by the electric charges? You see, is not satisfied by the electric charges. Let's go one by one. First one, total charge conservation. Yeah, of course it will always be conserved because you will not create a charge. You can only transfer the charge from one place to another. So, this is a correct statement. So, this will not be our answer. Okay, now, quantization of charge. Yes, of course, just a moment ago I said that the charges could only be quantized, which means there could be 1 charge, 2 charge, 3, 4, 5. So, there cannot be 1.5 charge. Okay, there cannot be 2.5 charge. Okay, so quantization of the charge is a correct statement. So, that will not be our answer. Now, third one, there are two types of charges. Of course, yes, one is positive and the other one is negative. So, we are now left with only one option, but still circular lines of force. What do you mean by that? You see, if you have a positive charge down here, the lines of forces will always try to move in a straight line. When you bring another positive charge close to it, the line curves, but it will not make a circle. Okay, the line curves, but it will not make a circle. And one of the most important property of the electric lines of force is it will not form a loop or it will not intersect. Okay, so based on this, I can say that this particular point is wrong and that will be our answer. Is it clear? So, this is how we do it. The next question goes as, which one of the following charges is possible? How do you check this? How do you check this? What did I say? What did I say? You see, the charge of the electron is nothing but 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 coulomb. So, this is the charge of the electron. If there are one charge, then 1.6 into 10 power minus 9. If there are two charges, 2 times this. 4 charges, 4 times this. So, your answer should definitely be an integral multiple of this, which means if you divide your answer with this particular value, you should get a whole number. You should get a whole number. Okay, the decimal values are not possible in here. So, that is what I am going to check. So, 58 will not go in 16. So, this is wrong. 32 will definitely go in 16. So, I will consider this. I will not conclude my answer now. I will also check two more options before I will come to a conclusion. 45, definitely not. 86, no. So I think the only possible one is 32. Let me cross verify it again. So you see, they say that this is the charge of some body. So 3.2 into 10 power minus 18 is equal to n times 1.6 into 10 power minus 19. Okay, so if I just bring it down, it becomes, so 2 into 10 power minus 18 divided by 10 power minus 19 is equal to n. So what happens, by the way? It becomes 2 into 10 is equal to n. So what I understand is 20 electrons should join to form such a charge. So 20 electrons should join to form such a charge. So that is what I understand from here. So this is how we find the correct answer for this particular problem. So now we move to the next question. If a charge on a body is 1 nanocoulomb, then how many electrons are present in the body? So a charge in a body is given and we are asked to find the number of charges that we required to form such a charge. It's again a easy one. Listen very carefully. What I am going to do is, I will be using the same exact formula like before, where capital Q is equal to n times E, where capital Q stands for the total charge and small e stands for the individual charge of a particle. Okay. So the total charge given here is nothing but 1 nanocoulomb, which is nothing but 1 into 10 power minus 9 is equal to n into, what is E? E is nothing but 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 coulomb it will be. So 1 by 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 is equal to n. So if we divide the whole thing down, what we will be getting is, we will be getting 6.25 into 10 power plus 9. So this much number of charges should join together to give 1 nanocoulomb. So that is what we have found from this particular question. It's of course very straightforward one and the formula is also very easy. Now we move to the next one, which is not a challenging one, it's a tricky question. You see, there is a body which is capable of giving out 10 power 9 electrons every second. So every second from a body 10 power 9 electrons are going to come out. So how much time is required to get a total charge of 1 coulomb? So now what I am going to just do is, I am going to find out how much amount of electrons, the number of electrons that is required to make 1 C first. Okay, 1 coulomb. And then I will divide the whole thing and I will find the answer. Okay, let me explain as I go along. See, first, capital Q is equal to n times C, again the same thing. Here Q is equal to 1 is equal to n into 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 coulomb it is. Now I will take it to that side where n is equal to 1 divided by 1.6 into 10 power minus 19. 1 divided by 1.6 is 0.625 into 10 power plus 19 is what we will get. So these many electrons should join together to produce 1 coulomb. So of course you can see that this is not possible at all because this is a decimal value. So what do you understand from this is, it is not possible to form exactly a 1 coulomb of charge. Remember this. Okay, now since this is an hypothetical question, what I am going to just do is, I am going to calculate how much time it takes. So first what I am going to do is I am going to divide the whole thing. I am going to divide the whole thing by 10 power 9. Okay, so what do I get is total time it is going to take. You see, per second 10 power 9 electrons are going to come out. So I am going to divide it with 10 power 9 to see how much second it takes for the total number of electron to come out to make such a charge. So listen, 0.625 into 10 power 10 is equal to n. 0.625 into 10 power 10 is equal to n. So this much amount of seconds, okay, this is in seconds. This is the time that it is going to take per second. You see, you understand. This is the total number of charges that are required to make 1 coulomb. So per second 10 power 9 is coming. So I divide it to get the total seconds for the entire charge to come out, and this is the value. Now what I will do is, in order to convert it to years, see what I am going to do. 0.625 into 10 power 10 divided by 60 seconds together will make you 1 minute, and 60 minutes will make you 1 hour. 24 such hours will give you 1 day, and 365 days will make 1 year. So this is how you divide this. On dividing this, we arrive at the answer, which is 198.19 years. So from seconds I am converting it to years. Like 198.19 years is the duration of time that is required for that body to give out a charge to make 1 coulomb. That is what we have found. It's a simple calculation. There is no much of thing to do. All you have to understand is how you extract things from the data that is given to you. That is the crucial one. So these are the very few important questions that we would have dealt in this particular chapter. So with this note, I'll just take a leave. Thank you.